Hi, good day. I am Pamela Palomar, and for today's video, I am going to discuss to you the society and education under the subject Ed 304. My topic is all about society and education. Before we dig deeper into its subtopic, let me first define the word society and education first. So, when we say society, it is a web of relationship. It is a term used to describe a relation or interaction among groups. So, it is where a community or group of people having common traditions, institutions, and interests. For example, the Filipino society. Okay, so on the other hand, when we say education, it is generally seen as the foundation of society which brings economic wealth, social prosperity, and political stability. This means that education is necessary and crucial to the development and improvement of our society. From their definition, we can see that education and society have close association since inception of society itself. These two terms, society and education, have a close association. So, on the one hand, education prepares individual to perform different social roles in society, whereas on the other hand, society and culture determines system of socialization and the nature of education to be imparted to the members. So that is the relationship of education and society. Now let us move forward to the philosophical perspective. When we say philosophy, it means that love of wisdom. Philo means love and Sophie means wisdom. So it refers to the rational, abstract, and methodological consideration of reality. In a broad sense, philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truth about themselves. Philosophical perspective shapes educational system through intuitions, logics that brings the consciousness of content. This means that philosophy has really a big impact in creating or building an educational system because it contributed many things or many ideas on how to make one. Now, to understand more about these topics, let us now move forward to the classical philosophies. An ancient Greek philosophers, especially Aristotle, defined the classical philosophies as a set of beliefs, assumptions, and analysis of experience, together with the intellectual edifice erected upon them. So, they help us to understand the way we think and why we think that way, and they help to explain how we understand the universe and how we understand ourselves. Because philosophers formulate ideas about government and politics, so because of this, their ideas are extremely influential. So, under classical philosophy, we have the idealism. Idealism, it is a philosophical approach stating that the ideas and knowledge are the only true reality. So the main focus of idealism is conscious reasoning in the mind. And the father of idealism was Plato. He believed that people should concern themselves in searching for the truth. So as a Greek philosopher, he believed that man did not create knowledge but discovered it. Also, Plato believed that the physical world around us is not real. It is constantly changing, and thus you can never say what it really is. So there is a world of ideas, which is a world of unchanging and absolute truth. So this is the reality for Plato. Does such a world exist independent of human minds? Plato thought it did. So, and whenever we grasp an idea or see something with our mind's eye, we are using our mind to conceive of something in the ideal world. So there are a number of proofs of this ideal world. The concepts of geometry, such as the concept of a circle, which is a line equidistant from a point, is something which does not exist in the physical world. So, all physical circles, such as wheels, drawings, and etc., are not perfectly round. Yet, our mind was has the concept of a perfect circle. So since this concept could not come from the physical world, it must come from an ideal world. So another proof is that from moral perfection, we can conceive of a morally perfect person, even though the people we know around us are not morally perfect. So that was the example, or the perfect example, why Plato believed in idealism. The idealists stress the importance of learning ideas and concepts, but they believe in reasoning, but questions the use of scientific method and sense perception. They have the most confidence in ideas that remain constant through time and place. When it comes to teaching students, idealists believe in sharing ideas and great works that are universal, as well as long-lived. So they believe all students should have at least one teacher who they look up to, so they can learn cultural norms. So in the classroom, idealists put a lot of focus on lecture and discussion and imitation. So if we really dig deeper to it, we can really see that idealism exists, and some teachers or schools have been doing or following the idealism. Now let us move forward to the idealism in education. So aims of education. Uh, Based on the idea of idealism, also with Plato, idealists believe that the aim of education should be directed toward a search for true ideas, self-realization, and character development. Self-realization holds that idealism has exerted so much influence on educational views about individual mind and self, whereas character development is concerned with moral character as an outgrowth of thinking and thoughtful actions. Now, let's go to the rules of the teacher. According to the idealist, the teacher must be excellent in order to serve as an example for the student, both intellectually and morally. Some examples of the teacher's role consist of the following. So, assisting students in choosing important material, serving as an exemplary models, encouraging students to ask questions, and providing suitable environment for learning. So idealists have a high expectations of the teachers. Now, when it comes to the curriculum and methods, it is believed that students should be taught how to think in school. The teacher passes on knowledge to the students, and the students gain and adapt their knowledge. Idealists think lecture is the most important method to deliver knowledge to students. So dialect or critical discussion is another method idealists believe which is important along with self-directed activities. Now, let's go to the fundamental principles of idealism. So first, we have the two forms of the whole world. Idealism believes in two forms of the world. First is the spiritual world and the material world. Idealism gives more importance to spiritual world in comparison to the material world. They believe that spiritual world is real and the ultimate truth, whereas the material world is transitory and moral. So according to Horney, idealism holds that the order of the world is due to the manifestation in space and time of an eternal and spiritual reality. Okay, now let's move forward to the number 2 or the second one. Ideals are more important than objects. So according to the idealistics, knowledge of the mind and soul can be obtained through ideas only. According to Plato, the ideas are of the ultimate cosmic significance. So they are rather the essences or archetypes which gives form to cosmos. These ideas are eternal and unchanging. So third is the importance of man over nature. To idealistics, man is more important than material nature. It is because man can think and experience about material objects and material phenomena. So according to R.R. Rusk, the spiritual or cultural environment is an environment of man's own making. So it is a product of man's active creativity. Now, let's go to the fourth, which is the faith in spiritual values. The prime aim of life is to achieve spiritual values. They are truth, beauty, and goodness. These spiritual values are undying and permanent based on this principle. So, according to J.S. Ross, goodness, truth, and beauty are seen to be absolute, each existing in its own right and entirely desirable in reality. Next is the importance of personality development. Idealists give much importance to the self of the individual. Hence, they insist upon the fullest development of personality of an individual. And according to J.S. Ross, the worth of human life at its best are emphasized by idealism. Human personality is of supreme value and constitutes to the noblest work of God. Okay, and the sixth is the full support to the principle of unity in diversity. They gave full support to the principle of unity in diversity. They believe that implicit in all the diversities is an essential unity. This implicit unifying factor is of spiritual nature. This may be called the universal consciousness or divinity. According to Proof H.N. Horn, an idealistic philosophy of education then is an account of man finding himself as an integral part of universe mind. So that was the 6 fundamental principles of idealism. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, which is realism. So realism suggests that matter is real and that it is separate from our perception. It means that what we see around us is not just a product of our mind, but it is real. So, if we compare the realism from the previous topic, which is idealism, we can see that their definition is quite opposite. Then, Aristotle, the father of realism, defined it as a notion that the world exists in terms of matter, separate from the world of ideas and independent of it. So in education, realism is the belief that we should study logic, critical thinking, and the scientific method to teach students to perceive and understand reality. So as you might imagine, those is a heavy emphasis on though there is a heavy emphasis on math and science, though the humanities can also be influenced by educational realism. Okay, so now we are going to discuss the basic principles of realism in education. First, phenomenal world is real. It means that there is nothing beyond this world. So according to Ross, realism accepts only the reality of external world. That is why it is antithesis to subjective idealism. This is what I said earlier, that idealism and realism thus really oppose to each other. Realism only believes that there is only an external world existing and there is nothing beyond what we sees it. So next, or the second, is that senses are the gateways of learning. So according to realism, whatever sensation we get while coming in contact with objects through our senses is the only reality. So like naturalism, realism also lays emphasis on sense training. The study of science, diversified curricula, catering education to varied interests, and making methods of teaching interesting and bases them on psychological principles. And now, the third principle is the theory of organism, which according to realism, animate and manimate substances makes an organism. So, that is what the theory of organism means. And the next is the man is only a part of material world. So, it means that man is only a part of material world. He becomes conscious of this material world with the help of his senses. So next is the emphasis on experiment. Realism emphasizes the importance of observation and experimentation. That is the reason why realism does not believe in the existence of any God, soul, other world, and etc. They consider these worlds only to be a figment of imagination. Realism also point out that a philosophy of education should be based on the realities of life and that it can prove its worth by being practical. Next is the importance of present life. So, the immediate reality of the material world is real. It is more important than the ultimate reality of the spiritual world. So, main place is to give a scientific subjects. Another principle under realism is regularity in the material world. So, this ideology accepts regularity in the material world, and that the change is also due to regularity. Here, this philosophy becomes different from the physical world. It considers all the things as a part of the totality, and their forms are changing and not eternal. So the development of society also takes place according to regularity. So this is what realism believes in. And the last would be the state. So realism considers states as an institution for his welfare and happiness. It is not a divine organization. So therefore, it is obligatory for the state to make arrangements for the means of happiness and convenience. And now lastly, let us move forward to the realism and the teacher. Realism has balanced approach so far, so as the position of the teacher is concerned. So the teacher must have knowledge of the subject matter and the nature of the child that he or she is going to teach or is being taught. So he must know their needs. He must also be conversant with the scientific and psychological methods and techniques of teaching. He must present the objects and activities before the child in their actual form, in their actual form. So, for accomplishing all this, the teacher himself must be trained and bestowed with intellectual, social, and moral qualities. And this ends my report. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something or more important things on this topic. Thank you.